Welcome to Larp Academia, and today we are going to talk about, as you probably guessed from my pointy hat and my sash, Wizard. Now, Wizard is an interesting class. It's not the typical fantasy class where it's, oh, I'm an old and feeble man, let me cast a spell, and oh, this is great. No. Wizard is a bit more for the agile and for the young. You are going to have to dodge, dip, dive, duck, and dodge in order to stay alive. You're going to have those meat shields in front of you. And Wizard is a very active role. Why? Well, you are the main offensive casting class. That means you need to be in the thick of it. You need to be close to the enemy. You need to be able to get in range with your verbals, get in range with your spell balls so you can throw and actually, hit. And you need to be in range where you could be attacked by throwies, arrows, and everything else. And if you're doing your job correctly, you should be almost the number one target for the enemy. In fact, you probably should be the number one target for the enemy because you are doing so much damage. And that is why you need to be very agile and aware as a wizard. In fact, when I was in my heyday as a wizard, it got to a point where even when going into the shopping mall, I would just go shopping for something and I'd duck because I thought I heard a bow twang. And I'd look around with extreme paranoia. And you'll need that to stay alive as a wizard. It's not for everyone, and I understand if you don't want to live that lifestyle. But you also have to have a different mentality as a wizard. You see, some wizards suffer the problem of a conscience when they play that. Oh man, people don't like dying by lightning bolts. I feel so bad when I do that. And that's not the way to view it. Those people are your targets. They're not people. They're only things to make you feel awesome. And that's why when we talk about all these other classes that druids are meant to support and buff up their allies. Healers are meant to support and give a sense of hope to their allies. You have wizard who's meant to give a sense of fear in your enemy. You're supposed to be the person who's just, oh, you're lagged. Oh, I'm sorry. Here, let me slowly destroy any hope you had. You're supposed to be the one who just turns around, casts a spell, or throws a spell ball and says, you, guess what? You're my target now, and I get to do with you whatever I want. And they look on it in horror as you lightning bolt that barbarian shield. They're stopped. You then wound their leg. You look around, I don't know what to do. Oh, you heat their weapon. The barbarian thinks, okay, I maybe got this. You force bolt, drop it on the weapon, destroy the weapon, and then you fireball the shield just to make sure they have absolutely nothing, have to crawl the base, and just for fun, you shove them while they have to crawl. And yes, we will talk about that later when we get to shove. But that is kind of what you would get for wizard. I am a very ruthless wizard. Whenever I get into whenever I put the yellow sash on, I realize that I am the only important person out there. Everyone out there is for my benefit. The druids, the best they can do is buff me. Healers, the best they can do is heal or possibly resurrect me. And the best that warriors can do, well, they can be, here, meat shield, take the shots for me. Because that's the best that they could ever do. And that's how you have to think as a wizard. You are a very selfish class. You will see this as we get through the kit, and before we get into first level wizard, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ding that notification bell if you want to stay alerted for more wizard content all the way from level 1 through level 6 and just more Amtgard or Larp content in general. Now on to level 1. The first spell that you get is Banish. We've talked about Banish a little bit here and there, and Banish it's good. It does what it's intended to. If there's someone teleporting in, if there's someone insubstantial coming in to kill you, then you can send them back to base. And while you might be thinking as a wizard, oh, well, I just send them back to base since all my spells, my spell balls and verbals are meant to control or kill, you are controlling them by making them do something they don't want to do. In fact, if you banish people enough, they get more annoyed. I've actually seen this with assassins where they come up and, oh, I'm gonna kill him, oh, he banished me. I don't want to go after that wizard. Why? Because he'll send me back to base. And it doesn't make sense. If you kill an assassin while they're insubstantial, they are more likely to actually come after you and just seek vengeance. But if you just keep banishing them, oh, I don't really want to face this person because they just feel lazy. There's no sense of vengeance or validation that they get for killing you. It's just sort of hollow to them. Which is why Banish is a pretty good spell to take. It's a very particular person that's going to be affected, again, someone who's insubstantial, but it can keep you alive. And I know, I guess, can help your team, maybe, who cares? But it can keep you alive. That's the most important thing. So Banish is good. It's also per life, and we'll talk about that versus its counterpart at level 4. Your next purchasing option is cancel. It's free, it's worthless. We don't really deal with enchants. The first enchant you'll get is at level 4, and it's terrible. So don't buy it. We're skipping over this. Why? It's completely worthless to you, not only because it's not good, it just doesn't really affect anything you do anyways. And why would you cancel one of the few? There's only 4 enchantments that you can do. Why would you cancel them? That's stupid. If you were gracious enough to gift someone it, you're not going to cancel it. But it's there in case you cast an enchant on yourself and realize, oh, I want that stone skin, and you can cancel it. That's its only real purpose. Now on to something that will be a little bit contentious at first, but I need to explain myself. The short sword is always green, or well, there's always blue or purple for other casting classes, and for you it is absolute garbage. Ugh! You don't want this thing. It's terrible. And here's the reason why. In Amtgard, we are taught you have a single short sword. You can fight anyone. You can fight that person who has a sword and shield. You can fight that person who has 2 swords. You can do anything that you want with a short sword. And that is an utter lie when it comes to class games. Either A, you are vastly superior to your opponents and able to actually kill them with a short sword without taking a wound, or B, you're facing someone who doesn't have just a short sword. You're facing someone who has a full kit, sword and board, armor possibly, enchantments, class abilities. I mean, you're coming out there with a short sword versus all that. You have to be beyond better than them to not take a wound. You have to be far better than them to a ridiculous level, which is why taking a short sword is not a good option for fighting. Now, in addition to this, you might think, oh, well, Wizard, I'll just take 2 short swords. You can't. You can only take 1 short sword. Unlike any other casting class, you are only able to take 1 short sword. Yeah, it's still only 2 points like the other classes, but there are very particular instances to take this weapon. Either you are level 6 doing a specific archetype, or you are just a warlord or someone who's way better skill-wise than everyone else on your field, and even then, I would not recommend it. Because if this wasn't enough to get you to stop, when you start casting spells, you have an idea of the entire field, you think of what happens, someone goes to fight you, you make the horrible decision to fight them with a short sword. Not only am I ill-equipped to fight them, I do a mental shift. I focus in on this person thinking, I'm going to fight them with a short sword. And I may pay attention to a few people around me, but I'm not paying attention to the whole battlefield. I'm not paying attention to that archer who's trying to snipe me. I'm not paying attention to that assassin who's doing throws or behind me. I'm not paying attention to any of that. I get focused in on how do I fight? How do I do this? How do I do that? And I'm not even warmed up. I switch mentally, not only physically, and I'm coming out cold while the other person's been fighting and they're more in the zone than I am. So I'm at a major disadvantage that way. And in addition to that, a short sword is just going to get you killed. If you want to block something, get a dagger. You can just block, parry. It makes you realize, I shouldn't be fighting with this. And you will utilize your main asset, which is spells. Spells are so much better as a wizard. You are the only casting class that can always cast a spell at something. They will be able to come and say, huh, immune to magic. You'll say, cool, take damage. You're the only casting class that can do that. And if the game designers say that doesn't deal damage, they basically have nullified all wizards, which is very pointless. So you will be the only casting class who should, according to all game mechanics, unless there's some specific game designer who wants to make a super powerful monster, you are the only class that is able to damage anyone, regardless of what their immunities and resistances or whatever are. That is why Wizard is awesome offensively. But do not use this. Do not use this unless you fall into those 2 criteria earlier of being way above everyone else to where there's no point in even playing a class, just play a peasant, or that you are using it with a specific 6th level ability. Otherwise, this thing's terrible. It will get you killed more than it will kill the enemies or help you. I have seen wizards do it. I myself have done it. It's much better to get into that paranoid state and just have a little dagger and realize, oh God, I need to be aware of the battlefield and where my friends are. So that is why you should not have a short sword. Now, something you should have eventually, not at level 1, is experience. Wizards have a specific use for experience. Other classes experience spells so that they can constantly have them. Druids, oh, I really want men. Healers, oh, I really want men. Bards will want to have some weird spells constantly experienced. We'll talk about that when we get to Bard. But for wizards, experience is a requirement to make your kill combo happen. This comes to full effect at level 5, a little bit at level 4 and 3, but there will be some combinations that you can use to kill people. And experience is required to make those consistently happen. We'll get into that a little bit more when we start talking about kill combos at level 3 and level 4 and what specific spells could be kill combos. But experience is a requirement when you get higher up. I've never seen a wizard who doesn't take experience because it is that important and integral to your kit. Now a fun one. Druids get this, yeah, level 4, 2 per spell ball, and it's not that good, and I'm just fiddling with my pouch, but here it is. Here is Force Bolt. They get it at 4th level 2 per ball. We get it at 1st level 3 per point. Well, they get 2 balls per 1 point. We get 3 balls per 1 point. And we can take it 4 times, so we could have 12 spell balls in this little sack. It's pretty great. You could just start pulling them out, and the best part is that all you need to do is say Force Bolt, Force Bolt, Force Bolt, and then throw it. Or it's just charge. You can walk with it. Just 3 words. It's so nice. And Force Bolt is armor breaking, weapon destroying, wounding, and I mean, that's pretty good. By wounding, I mean it actually can hit a wound. Ed area and, oh, my leg, it's gone, or oh, my arm's gone, or oh, my chest, I'm dead. So Force Bolt is a very good offensive spell at level 1. It is weak to shields, which is why it's not amazing, especially being for level 1. It is, I mean, shields just block it and nothing happens. So Force Bolt isn't the most perfect, but when monks come at you and you don't have a specific spell ball to counter them, you can say Force Bolt, Force Bolt, Force Bolt, and then you can go and you can try to hit in between their swords because it's very hard to block with just single swords, especially if you're trying to do some tricky little spell ball twirls and tricks and curveballs towards people, which you might eventually get good at. You could also aim at people's legs or try to fake to leg and then go up. There's a lot of things you can do to make a Force Bolt happen. Oh, that's gone. And while the Force Bolt bag just left me because it couldn't withstand the pressure I'm giving to it, it's really that good of a spell ball. It's very cheap, it's very good. I even take it at 6th level because it's a great backup spell ball. And in all honesty, Force Bolts is something you should take. I wouldn't be surprised if at level 1 you took 4 points in Force Bolts, just 12 of them, and came out and just started throwing them at people, since, I mean, not everyone has shields. And you are also able to use this on monsters. This is very great for monsters. It's sorcery, it's cheap, you have probably 6 balls, whatever, for 2 points. You can take one, throw it at a monster, see if they're immune to sorcery. If they are not, we'll talk about what to do at 6th level, but it does give you an idea of what the monsters are immune to, and it can always just peg off that armor, little by little. If they're not immune to sorcery, this is the way to deal with monsters if you're not facing a monster who has a shield. I know that this looks a little bit different than the rest of the video, and that's because in post I realized, hey, I forgot a spell. And that spell is Force Barrier. Now the reason why I forgot Force Barrier is because it's a pretty bad spell. When you use Force Barrier, it's a per refresh. Oh, it must be pretty good, right? Well, your per refresh makes it so that you are frozen for 30 seconds. Now, this, you may think, wait, that's a good thing. Then I can choose when to not be hurt. And yes and no. See, when you get frozen for 30 seconds, it's not in your control. You are frozen and stuck in place, so if someone comes along with a release, which we'll talk about next level, that 5 out of the classes have release, they're able to go up, release you, and you have a dagger. Even if you have a single short sword, who cares? They're going to release you, kill you, and it's not great. The reason why it's not gray is because when you use Force Barrier, it can actually be useful and do what's intended. Those are rare instances. Those are the instances when no one has release or no one remembers what release is. Or your whole team was pushing and then someone came in from a flank or a barbarian bomb came and you just had to pop Force Release very quickly. And once you pop Force Release, then you're safe. Whew. And your teammates can release you and you can keep going faster because you don't have to wait the 30 seconds then. It does theoretically have a use. It can theoretically be useful. And any time that you have a, oh, well, this could be theoretically useful, is when you start to get into very wishy-washy territory. So I would not recommend Force Barrier. I have seen many level 1s taking it thinking, oh yeah, it'll save me, and it doesn't save them because it only would save them in a specific instance. It's a per refresh. It's not a good spell. So I would highly recommend not to take Force Barrier. Her next option is Heat Weapon. It is one of my personal favorites. I don't know why people don't use it as much as it is, because it's so good. It's so good, which is why it's blue. I don't care if other people don't recognize the greatness of it. But Heat Weapon is a per life verbal that makes it so that the affected target cannot use that weapon that you target for 30 seconds. Now, it's not very good if someone's dual wielding 2 weapons, but it is good if someone has a pole, if someone has sword and board. And the other reason why it actually turns out to be very good, aside from it being per life and being first level, is that most people don't realize, hey, I'm a martial class, I can have an infinite amount of weapons. They go out on the battlefield with 1 weapon. A pole, a single short and a shield, something like that. It's not great. It's not a great thing to do. They're not fully utilizing their kit, and you need to take advantage of that. That is when Heat Weapon comes into play. You can strip 3 people from being able to engage in combat on a line, and if there's 10 people, that means now it's 10 instead of 10 versus 10. It's 7 versus 10, which is a pretty big change. You're then able to maybe poke some holes in those areas, in those pockets, spread it out, and make it so that your team is able to show just how great you are and achieve victory all because of you. Because in the end of the day, it's all because of you and how great and glorious you are. I mean, that's how wizards are. So Heat Weapon is a great option for you to take. I would highly recommend it, and it, while release does technically counter it, people don't seem to know or care about release countering it unless you're doing it on a spellcaster, which is I kind of disagree against doing. If you use Heat Weapon properly on other martial classes, you will be surprised at the result. Now, Mend does not work on Heat Weapon because it doesn't break the weapon. Mend is an interesting option for you to take. It's blue because a lot of the time when you block things with your dagger, well, and it might be an arrow and it breaks. I'm a 1-point shield. Or when you block a force bolt with an arrow, I'm a 1-point shield. You want that dagger back, so you want to mend it. That is the primary function of mend. You can help your teammates and, I guess, repair a point of armor or a shield more likely. I would recommend repairing equipment instead of armor. Leave that to druids. But really, mend's there for you to repair your 1-point shield. I take at least 1 mend whenever I can, because mend is it's a good fallback and you can do some amazing things. My favorite instance of mend is when an archer was going to shoot a barbarian shield with a destruction arrow. I saw him drawing it. I started the incant of mend. I make the time mulligan, I make the time mulligan, I make the time mulligan, I make the time mulligan. The shield's hit. I make the time mulligan. Here you go, it's repaired. And everyone just laughed. So mend can still be used to make you the most important person on the entire field. It's a great spell to take. I would highly recommend having at least 1. Beyond that, you don't need it. It's mainly for you. Now, for your last purchasing option, you have Shove. We've talked about Shove a lot in previous videos for the basics of Amtgard magic, because Shove happens for so many classes, because it's a very good spell. The best part is Shove is the best for you. That's right. Your Shove is not only once per life at first level, pretty good to get it, it's also charged times 3. So you have infinite shoves if you're smart about it. And you don't get many just innately chargeable spells, so Shove is a very good one to take. Shove is also sorcery, so it works on anyone. The one thing that really is annoying with Shove is that some people don't suffer the full effects of it. So if someone's legged and you shove them, they cannot get up and walk back. No, that's cheating. That's like saying for Heat Weapon, oh, well, I know it's heated, but I'm still going to use it to block. Like, no, you don't get an innate advantage. You can't get up and walk from the spell. That completely negates some of its potential, and it negates how evil you can be. No, you have to make people crawl. When someone gets up, you yell at them, no, you can't get up. The spell doesn't say you can get up. Crawl. And get this gleeful, evil look in your eye. And when people see that evil look, they'll realize, oh God, this person's going to completely make my life miserable if I keep attacking them, and you will. It eventually makes it so that your presence alone can shift the entire battlefield. You can go up there with just a dagger and an uncharged spell ball, pull it out from your pouch in front of them, not say the incant, so it's obvious that it's uncharged, and then have people freeze. Have 10 people freeze for 5 seconds. You can get it to the point where you can create fear just from how cruel you are with your spells. And shove is one of those spells that can be extremely cruel. So I would recommend, yes, shove people. Don't just shove them away. Yeah, you can shove them and make a hole in a line and help your team, but they'll come back. There are other spells you can do besides shoving. You're the offensive class. You could use shove instead to either A, keep you alive. Oh, barbarian's charging me, my power shoves me, my power shoves me, my power shoves me. Or you can make it to have your enemies suffer. Barbarian who's legged and has no shield and sword and who's already crying at life and thinking this is stupid. Barbarian, my power shoves me, my power shoves me, my power shoves me. Don't get up, crawl. And you can have fun tormenting people. Now, shove is chargeable. It's fun to do like that. And I would highly recommend taking it if not for cruelty's sake, in order to get people to stay away from you, which is what you want, then, for just defensive purposes, or creating a hole in the line, or so many other reasons. And it's sorcery, so you should definitely take it. Now that has been our level 1 take on Wizard. As you can see, there's a little bit of cruelty already coming through, but don't worry, it gets so much worse for your enemies as you level. You'll be able to control them. You'll be able to make them slowly die and degrade. You'll be able to make them wish they weren't able to play, and I'll teach you a bunch of tricks how to do that. You are a cruel being as a wizard. You are there to inspire fear in your enemies, and if this is the class for you, I would highly recommend, again, subscribing, leaving a like to make sure other people see the video and learn how to be cruel, but subscribing and dinging that notification bell so that you can learn many tips and tricks on how to be the greatest wizard possible. Because in the end, it's all about me.